and we're here to talk about how to accelerate your sales, and also talk a little bit about the psychology of sales. A little bit about me. Most of you know me. I think Emily, you're the only one who hasn't met me before. But what I bring to the table, if you like, is I've been doing this coaching of SMEs for the last 10 years this year. Prior to that, they had a big corporate career in huge branded international businesses, like started Diageo, then went financy with GE Money, and then came back to my consumer goods with oh, here's Sarah, great. Back to my consumer goods with PepsiCo. So that actually, G was B2B. The other two effectively were B2B to C. And throughout that time was supporting sales and marketing teams. And then obviously in my last 10 years, I've been supporting businesses, both B2B and B2C in their sales. So what is sales? I was hoping this was going to be a trigger one. So I see sales. Sales can be one of those things that people love to do, or some people who are not in dedicated sales roles, because Sarah, you're a great example there actually of people end up doing sales from all sorts of positions, especially within SMEs. And a number of sort of professional practices, if you think accountants, lawyers, etc., they tend never to have a salesperson in the role. It's the accountant or the lawyer who actually ends up doing sales. So some people are professional salespeople, some people end up doing sales. Whatever position we do this from, if we think about sales as professionally helping others to buy, I think it gets our mindset in a good place. None of us want to be the archetypal car salesperson, but we are simply helping people to buy, and people need to buy stuff. They just need some help along the way. But sales is also essentially communication. Everything about sales is communication. You are communicating, they're communicating their needs to you, and you are communicating how your product or service can help them and giving them the information they need to make that buying decision. So thinking basically what we're going to talk about pretty much for the rest of this hour is communication, because without communication, sales does not happen. You might have seen, actually, a few of us have been to the Wickham Expo that was up at the Wickham Wanderers ground. And I didn't see it, actually, but sometimes you go to an expo stand, there's somebody standing behind a stand, and it's always very quiet around them because there is no communication happening. They're just standing there. So the other thing about communication at sales is we have this phrase, true communication is the response you get. So if you are communicating well, you get a yes in a sales context. If you aren't communicating well, or well for that individual, you're going to get a maybe, I want to think about it, no type space. So sales is definitely that environment where you absolutely get feedback on how good your communication was, because it's very clear at the end of the day. But when it's a horribly honest phrase, this. And it can apply to any kind of communication. So if you're a team leader, you've got team, if they're not doing what you want them to do, look at yourself. How was your communication to get the response that you want? But in sales, it is brutal, because if you get the communication right, you get a sale. If you don't, you don't. But because you've got that feedback. So when we start thinking about our roles of sales and how we're going to go about this communication, we have to tune into our WII FM radio station, because this is the radio station that our prospects are tuned into. And it's very simple. It's the what's in it for me radio station. So it's just a fact of humanness that we are all listening out for what's in it for me. So you're talking to me, how is this going to help me? Why am I interested? What is it doing for me? So in your sales conversations, you have to be very focused on them. It's not about you, your product, your service. It's about them. So there's one little word that becomes incredibly important in everything we say. Any ideas what that might be?
You.
You. Exactly. Thank you, Kevin. You, yours. The more you and yours you can get into any kind of communication, the better, because it means you're walking in their shoes and you're thinking about how is this relevant to them. Obviously easier to do one-to-one because you can absolutely tailor it. But I'm guessing most of you are having your sales discussions one-to-one from who we've got here. Yeah, and it's you and yours, whether it's verbally, it's written, it's an email, it's a message. Just think. So please, on your notebooks, get a big fat U on those notes. So what do we think? If we think about sales, there's the logical approach to sales and logical approach to communication and logical ways of making decisions. So when people think about your prospects and then making a decision, do you think they are making more of a decision based on logic or on their emotions, their feelings?
Emotions.
Emotions. What else do we think? Actually, let's pop it in the chat. Let me check that I'm looking at Emily here.
They buy it emotionally, but they justify it logically.
Yeah, exactly. They are absolutely. It's an emotional decision to buy, and no matter how logical and scientific, if you like, even if you're selling to a structural engineer, the decision they make ultimately is going to be emotional, justified by logic. And this is the root of a lot of issues when it comes to sales, is when you think you've got somebody on board and then they say, I just need to talk to my business partner or my other half. I'm sure, Sarah, you end up talking to one half of a couple about their garden, and then actually it's a joint decision. And then what happens there is you have taken the person you're speaking to through an emotional journey, or you will have done by the time we've finished this training. And so they've bought emotionally on the back of the conversation you've had, but because they justify it logically, they will then share on that information in a logical way to a person who wasn't part of that conversation. And that person just gets the logic and they don't get any of the emotion, and they are often the ones who go, nah, don't think we need that. No. Anybody had that? You've got one person on board, there's multiple decision makers, it gets referred on to someone else, and then they come back and go, no, so-and-so didn't want to play.
All the time.
It's so easy, but this slide really shows why that happens. And the way around that is quite simple. Get them both in front of you. Really key to find out well, to work out or assume, I'm going to say assume, I'm going to say that really carefully. Work out who the decision makers are. I'm going to say assume because for sometimes you will ask, who else will be involved in this decision? Who else should we have on the call? And I have this. Oftentimes people will say, oh, no, it's just me. It's fine. Yeah, there is another business partner, but they're a silent business partner. Others, you might get this. They're not involved in the decision. Or you might, if you're B2C, you're speaking to one person, and then the other half, they go, no, it's fine. I'll make decisions about this. But when it comes to spending money, those people are often, yes, they are involved. So I really challenge that. And I would say, Sarah, for you on the gardens, whichever one you've got of a couple or family, whatever, I would always get the other one and say, look, I'm sure they're going to have a perspective, or challenge them if it B2B or B2C. Would you discuss this with someone else? Working with small businesses, the wife might be a nominal name. I'm saying that because that's the way the genders on average go. But the other half might be on the company's house as a director. They say they're a silent partner, but they always go and chat it with them. Even if they're not on company's house, they have a chat with them. So challenge in the nicest possible way to make sure that you are speaking to all the decision makers, official and unofficial decision makers. So 20% logic, 80% emotion. So the emotion side, we really have to make sure we're focusing on. So how do we get to this emotional side? And this is the sort of psychology, if you like, of sales that I talked about in the title, is via our formula for change. And I use this all the time in sales because sales, according to Helen, is a change. So if you think about it, I think the only two scenarios where you make a sale is somebody has had your product or service from someone else and they're now changing to have it from you, or they're changing from not having had your product or service to now having it. I don't think there's any other scenario where you buy something. You've either bought it before but from someone else, or you haven't bought it before and you're now buying it. So either of those scenarios, it's a change. It's a change from making do without it, or it's a change to having who's doing it. So we need to take people through this change journey. And I have this lovely formula, which I want you to know and love and be able to imprint it in your memories. So we're going to spend a little time on this slide. I'm going to take you through this formula, but write it down. This is key. You've got your notes on this area. So what does it stand for? We start with D and V. So D stands for dissatisfaction with their current situation. And V is their vision for the future when they are working with you. So those two are the biggest drivers of energy for change. So how this works is, and a lot of people avoid this. They avoid talking about bad stuff. And we don't want to diss our competitors if they're switching from one to another. But we do want to understand what is not working for our person at the moment. So for those working with businesses, what is, for James, what's the annoyances they're having with their current IT supplier? Or what are they, what's annoying them? What's the dissatisfaction, the issues that they've got by not having an IT supplier? Kevin, for the, what are the things that are getting in people's way through not having FSB membership or the benefits of FSB membership? What are the fears, that the worries, etc. Ella, for your entertainment, what happened at the last event, with the entertainment, or what's the fear of what could happen? What are they concerned about? Or they haven't got the dissatisfaction when they haven't got time to find their own entertainment, or they don't know a good one. I mean, the risk of their whole reputation being in tatters because they got the wrong entertainment. Sarah, your dissatisfaction is a lovely easy one. What's annoying them about their current garden? It gets boggy, they can't go in it, it's boring, it's blah, blah, blah. We can see the neighbours, we don't want to, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now, the key thing about these D and the V is another big rule about sales is, unfortunately, if you are having a sales conversation, whether or not you are in a sales job, you are now being the salesperson. Okay? And we don't believe things that salespeople tell us because they wouldn't they? Because they're trying to get us to buy it. So just have in your mind that everything you say as a salesperson, which you all are, because that's why you're here, everything you say as a salesperson is not believed by your prospect. So the way around that is we have to get your prospect to say what you would like to say to them, because they will believe what they say themselves. So I've probably got some quizzical looks at this point. So the way we do that is you have to ask your prospect questions so that they can answer it with the information that you would actually like to tell them. It's a bit of a game. So anybody who likes word games or questioning games, this is for you. The best salespeople are the best questioners. So you have to ask. Now, you're not going to ask, what is the dissatisfaction with your current situation? That would seem a little unnatural. But you are going to say, okay, tell me about what's happening at the moment. Or tell me what you think of the garden at the moment. Tell me, where are you at? And you need to find a problem, an issue, a concern, something like that. And when you find it, you have to dig deep. You can't just go, okay, and move on. We have to find out, why is that really important to them? What's the impact? This is a great question. You can ask it in any scenario. What's the impact of that to you or to the business? If you're going B2B, what's the impact of that to the business? Follow-up question, what's the impact of that to you? Because when we get to emotion is when we get to us, the impact to me. So if you're B2C, the impact to me is very easy. It's direct. How's that, what's that impacting? Well, I feel depressed every time I look out because it's a mess, or I'm getting heart palpitations because I'm worrying about the entertainment or whatever. If you're B2B, the impact to them personally could be they're not going to hit their results they need to hit. It might be they're going to look silly in front of their boss. Look at the context of who you're talking to, or their customer. So we have to go finding how that really hurts. If you get to tears, that is fabulous. Yeah. That worried. No, you don't have to go quite that far. We don't want to get into sort of counselling or anything required, but we do want them to, when you feel them stop and think and they slow down and go a bit softer in their response, that's when you know you've hit emotion. But we're not going to leave them down there, because then we're going to bring them back out of that pit of despair into having a wonderful vision for the future. But guess what? Can you tell them the vision? No, because they won't believe you. So you have to ask them, what would you like? How would you like this to be? What would be a good scenario? What would be the opposite of what you've got? those kind of questions so that they're thinking through, what would ideal look like for me? That'd be a great question. What does ideal look like for you? You'll notice that I'm asking very open questions that you could ask to, you'll get your own little set of questions and they could be pretty much the same every time for that first question. And then you're going to ask follow-up questions. Oh, right. So what exactly do you mean there? What would that be? How would that work? So they're really starting to visualize in their mind and think through what is it going to be like when this horrible problem has gone and they've got it how they want it to go. Now, as they're doing this visualizing and explaining it to you, then you can say, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we do that. So you can drop these little bits in. Okay, do you like that or that? Because we do both. Yeah. So, oh, I can do that for you. We can do that. So, but they're saying what they want. You're just affirming how that happens in your world in little bits, dropping it in. So you're not doing a whole long sales speech. You're just interjecting. So that they're now coming right back up and feeling excited. Now, we've written this as a mathematical formula here for a good reason. Because what happens if you think you've got to get your dissatisfaction up to, your optimum energy for change would be a dissatisfaction level of 10 and a vision clarity of 10 times 10, we've got 100 units for change, if you like. If we only get dissatisfaction at level 2 and vision at level 2, we've only got 4 level of energy for change. If we have one of those at 0, how much energy for change do we have?
None.
None. Any number times 0 is 0. So if you don't go down the dissatisfaction route because you think it's too uncomfortable, you are not going to have any energy for change. To change, we need to move away from stuff and towards, away from the nasty towards the lovely. If we don't move away, we don't move. So you have to do both. So I've just gone on a rant there. So any questions about D and V, and then we'll come up to F, U, and R. Any D or V questions? Shout out. Pop in the chat box. I have it open. No, all good to carry on. Okay. So if we think about this equation as a bit like this energy for change is a bit like charging a power bank. So we've done our D times V, we've got this fully charged power bank, but a power bank doesn't do anything unless it's plugged into something and the energy can flow into action, yeah? Into, it's going to charge your phone and then your phone will spring into action. So our F is for first step. What is the first step you need to take to move this person who's now all energized for change, because they're clear on what they don't like, they're clear on where they want to get to, now they really want to move towards that. What is the first step they need to take? And you need to give them a baby step that is really easy to do. It's easy to do emotionally and it's easy to do physically because they want to take that first baby step. So that is like the next step in your sales process. It might be they need to give you a little bit of information. It might be they need to watch something. You want to give them a testimonial to watch, which is 2 minutes long. You're going to send them the link. All they've got to do is click. It might be they need to just give you a budget, or I don't know, just think of it as, make it as something that's as comfortable and easy for them to do as possible. I say emotionally easy because I learned, fortunately, quite a long time ago in my business, bizarrely, it is easier for a prospect to come in a group and learn something like on one of these sessions, or I used to do them pre-COVID in person, And people would more readily drive half an hour to an event, spend 2 hours at an event, drive half an hour back again. So basically move, take up a whole morning of their time to come to a seminar was easier for them emotionally in that group environment where they could be little bit anonymous and suss me out. That was easier than having a 20-minute phone call one-to-one. Now, logically, you'd say that's ridiculous. They're given a whole half day versus 20 minutes. But emotionally, that was easier. So think about what is an emotionally easy first next step. Then we need to add a little bit of urgency. Well, actually, at the moment, we need to add a lot of urgency. At the moment, I think sales are a lot slower than they previously have been. They slowed right down in COVID, sped up a bit, and I think they're back slow again from what I'm hearing from people. Maybe how are people experiencing it? Do you feel it's a bit slow out there, or it depends on sector, to be honest, as well?
This has been a whole different year for us. Every model we've had has just been flipped on its head at the moment. Busy periods are now quiet periods are now busy periods. We've just lost every bit of data we had, and all of this is all gone. It's a nightmare.
Right. Yeah, Emily, you're saying it's definitely slow for you at the moment. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty, and with uncertainty, you get caution and slowness.
Yeah, ironically, a lot of it's down to the crying chancellor.
Yes, yes. And a few wars and a few other things.
Yeah.
So we have to overcome that. Oh yeah, Ella's saying as well, totally on its head, upside down. Yeah, I mean, dear knows what's happening at the minute. But anyhow, we need to take charge of it. So urgency. Urgency has two sides to it for more. You can have urgency or you can have scarcity. So urgency, you want to find something that is going to, and it's not your urgency, it's their urgency. So why do they need what you're producing sooner? What is there a date? Is there an event? So furniture, gardens, events there's an event, do we need a garden ready for the 50th birthday party? Do we need the furniture for again and some milestone, something that's going to happen? That's why I don't like promotions. I don't like discounting. I prefer a value add promotion, but if there is some kind of promotion that comes to an end and really does come to an end, then that creates a bit of urgency. You want to get it in before the promotion is over. But to quote a local one, I don't know anybody who drives along the A40 through Wickham, Dormio, I think always have a 50% off. If anybody ever spends more than half price on a Dormio mattress, I have no idea why they would do that. So it has to be a real end to it. So urgency, their urgency is important. And scarcity is the other one. So if there's a limited number of these things, if the artist has obviously only can be in one place on one date, so the scarcity, let's book it whilst they're available for your date. I'll go and check it. Yes, they are available. Do you want to reserve that? It would be really annoying, wouldn't it, to choose this and then find it wasn't available. Or it could be your scarcity in terms of we can only take on so many new clients at this point. If you want it, let's get it you reserved in. Otherwise, it could be a 3-month gap until we're available to take on more clients type of thing. So really find a reason for why this needs to happen, which you may well trip over whilst you're doing your D times V digging around. So all of those need to become more weight to them, and they need to be bigger in the prospect's eyes than their resistance to change. Most of us have a natural resistance to change. We prefer our comfort zone. So any kind of change is something that we need to get over because it's easier to stay where you are. So you've got to overcome that inertia. And if we don't make the sale, and this is the brutality of this equation, if we don't get a yes, we haven't overcome their resistance to change. It means something on the left-hand side of that equation is not strong enough. You didn't get enough dissatisfaction. You didn't get a clear enough vision. The first step wasn't easy enough, or the next step, and there wasn't enough urgency. If one of those is missing, then you're likely not to overcome that resistance to change. The good news is, if you do a bit of diagnostic on yourself, very honest reflection, you can go, actually, I know what's missing. I didn't really hit a pain point. I need to go back, get a second bite of the cherry. Or there was no urgency. Okay, let me think of how we can create some urgency and go and create some. So use this equation as you design what you're doing, but also use it backwards to work out why maybe you didn't make the sale. Why they didn't say yes now. It might be you haven't not made the sale. It's just they haven't moved to the right next step yet for you. So quite a big chunk on that. But for me, this is almost the biggest lever and the biggest influence you can have over sales on the psychology side. Any questions?
You might want to change that header.
The formule for change. Yes. Thank you very much. I will.
I thought that was one of your "my glasses are hiding on the shelf" moments.
Well, at least you're looking at the slides. That's good to know. Okay, let's keep going. So, all prospects have to go through this process before buying. We call it the know, like, trust process. They have to know you. They have to know you exist and know about you. Obviously, because you've got to be in contact with them. You've got to get into conversation with them. When you've got into conversation with them, we actually pretty much always do business with people we like. Yeah? It's not often you go, ooh, oh yeah, no, I'm going to do business with you. But ultimately, we have to trust you. Their prospect has to trust you because they're about to pay good money for what you're about to do for them. And they have to trust that you're going to deliver. And so ultimately, your sales process needs to allow them to get to know you, but most importantly, build trust in you and your product. So how do we do that? We do that with your sales process. Now, I often ask business owners, I say, have you got a sales process? They go, yeah, we do this, this, and this. And then they buy, and I'm like, that's not my kind of sales process. So for your sales process, we have leads coming in. And I know actually on the form that you filled in as part of signing up for this, a number of you are saying actually you've got you haven't got enough leads. And that's another topic, that's marketing. But actually, the most effective way to increase your revenues is to increase your conversion of the leads you are getting. Make sure you've got a really robust sales process first, so that then when you invest time and or money in marketing to get more leads, you're getting the best return on investment on that time or money, because you've got a really good sales process that's going to convert the highest proportion of them. So we have our leads coming in. And our sales process needs to warm our prospects up from being pretty cool through to getting warmer and warmer till they're red hot, ready to buy and say yes. So that's the ultimate job of a sales process. The more high value your product, the more steps you need in the sales process, because they need to be warmed up to a bigger investment. So the higher value, the more steps you need is the rule of thumb. And because every time you speak to somebody about what their needs are, get that D&V going, they get warmer. But then if there's a gap, and there always is a gap between one thing and the next step, whether it's a day's gap, a week's gap, a month's gap, they cool off. So you can't start your next conversation where your last conversation stopped. You need to go back a bit, build that energy again. Yep, go back into D times V plus F plus U. get that energy going again and then take it to a higher level. So we have to warm them up in every step. We have to bring them back up again to where they were and take them higher, closer to that yes. It used to be higher value product needed. I say higher value product when you're at a sort of, you know, £1,000 plus, which I, you know, most of you are, and some of you are very much higher than that. You needed about a 7-step process. Through the pandemic, research said that went up to 11 steps because of the caution then. And now I would say we're probably somewhere about there as well. So if you haven't got 7 to 11 steps in your process and you're selling something of 4 figures plus, you need to get some more steps in there. So some very generic, typical things that you might find in a sales process here is you've got your initial contact, whether they've responded to a web form or they are called in, or you met them face-to-face networking. You've had some kind of initial contact. Then you need to generally get some more information about what they're looking for. So I call that info gathering. That might be a discovery type of call. It might be you want them to do a little questionnaire. It might be a bit of both. But you need to get more information before you can possibly know how you're going to help them to buy, because that's what we're doing, remember. There might be some kind of initial proposal, or you might go and see them first. Those can be different orders depending on what you're doing, or maybe they come to see you, or maybe there's some a brochure or something to look at what they're buying or to describe it. But there's that next, some kind of initial proposal or description of price. We have to get the investment early on in the process, that they've got some idea of the scale of investment, because everything else you do after talking about it can be a range is great, but as soon as you get the rough level of investment we're talking about out there as early as possible, all the other conversations you're having, they're subconsciously justifying that level of investment. If you go through all of your process and they're thinking it's going to be 500 quid and you're going to come out with 3,000, they've been listening to it all with their assumption based on potentially just no information whatsoever, that just thought maybe that's what it would be. They've justified everything against that, and they've been listening with that antennae. You get to the end, you go final proposal, £3,000, they go, whoa. And suddenly they were listening to everything else you've talked about and they've talked about with the wrong ears, if you see what I mean. So you've got to get investment level in there early on. And then when you've got all the detail and information and all their needs and what they want and their priorities, then you come up with the final proposal and you want them to say yes.
Then what would you suggest for the opposite way around then, when the value of what somebody's getting is hugely bigger than the cost of the actual, for example, well, you know, with the FSB, you know,
Yeah.
you get a huge amount of benefits for peanuts, and yet people still have a problem making a decision.
I would still start with the cost of it, the membership fee, because then you're going, okay, for whatever it is, you're getting this and this, and as you're going through the benefits, you could be, you know, going, well, you get, you know, this kind of a support, you get the, I mean, the one I love for the FSB is your hopefully you're still doing it, the effectively you'll cover the cost of the, if there's a VAT investigation, the cost of the accountant. Yeah, is that still part of it?
Yeah.
So I know I have had my accountant sell me insurance for that was about 250 quid, which is about the cost of a, you know, small micro membership type of thing. So that's already ticked. I've almost covered my cost for that. Then what else? We've got this, we've got discounted this. So what's your, you know, if you've got a 5% discount off your whatever, healthcare, how much are you paying on your healthcare? 1,000, okay, so that's whatever, you know. It's so easy in that respect, because the money is nothing, it's accounted for. So definitely do it up front. But then you're then putting a value, you can actually put either peace of mind value or an actual value on what an equivalency would be.
Right. It's not a bad idea. It's a good idea.
You know, all the documents on the your legal documents. So since I became, sorry, this is not a sales session for FSB, but it's actually a good illustration for a selling process. I used to have a Simply Doc subscription. That was 95 quid a year, I think, which I don't take now because I go on the FSB legal document site. So that's a nice one.
I think, I mean, obviously, as you say, you don't want to make it an FSB sales thing, but I think what I need to do is I need to change my approach really then, as far as because it feels sometimes like I'm feature dumping rather than sort of finding out what the issues are with the company.
Yeah, that's a fantastic insight, Kevin. I love that. Feature dumping, absolutely. We don't talk features ever. It's benefits. Got to be benefits, and the benefit is only a valid benefit if you like. You can only score a point. Ding, I've got a benefit out there if it's applied to a need that your prospect has already said.
Yeah.
So I think games is a great analogy for sales. Imagine a game. Yeah, you've got to get all your dings for your benefits mentioned, but you can only mention a benefit when you've got a need. James, on the IT support, you can do the same. You know, what's the cost of lost, you know, it's X amount per person or whatever for support. What's the cost? How many hours do you think you lose by people swearing at their machines because they can't get onto this, it won't print, it will do this, it won't do that? And what's an hour of their time? And by the way, they're probably moaning to somebody else. That's 20 minutes of the person who's listening to the moans time. You know, time is money. Ella, you might be able to use that, because if you're not planning and finding and sourcing entertainment, somebody else is. What's the cost of their time? Cost of time is a great one.
That is mainly when I'm speaking to clients. What I say is that I'm there to save you time, resource, and the stress of sourcing entertainment when you're not an expert in doing this. So yeah, it's very much time for me, because it's not cheaper for them to go through me than to source it directly, obviously. So I have to think about what the benefits are.
Absolutely. So you've got to find out how much time they spend on these things, or what else is on their to-do list, and where does this come in their priority list.
Yeah, and the risk if they, I think with, go on, sorry.
Yeah, and the risk, but you've got to ask them those questions, so they're telling you it's actually, I've got these other things that are far more important, far more valuable for me to do, but I've been dumped on to do this. And you go, okay, so what's the impact if you would spend 2 hours or, you know, half a day doing this versus doing that? What's going to happen? Okay, that doesn't sound a good use of time. So I could do that. It's, you know, that's what you do day in, day out, in a fraction of the time, and with much better contacts. Sorry.
Sorry. Can I just ask with the garden? So I take the very initial contact and do sort of, you know, on your flow chart, I do the sort of initial gathering. Then I pass the new lead or prospect onto the design team, and they would arrange a meeting. So they would have the sort of first visit where they would gather much more information because they're the experts. They would then draft an initial proposal. But I was just wondering, is there sort of an equation for the more money a client is spending, the more face-to-face visits you actually need? So if our design team have created a proposal following their first visit, do you think there's a benefit to then going back and talking them through that face-to-face? Like, when something's very high value, can you follow on these next stages with Zoom calls and conversations, or do you think there's a benefit to face to face? This is just an open question. I'm new to all this, so
I can answer that.
Yeah, no, great question.
Absolutely.
I would say face to face trumps. Zoom is a good it's a good substitute. It's so much better than a phone, and absolutely not an email. So my rule is never email a proposal if you haven't already talked them through it. When I say talked them, I mean ideally Zoom or face-to-face them. Minimum phone call.
Okay.
And absolutely, in fact, talking to I coach Sarah's business, so talking to the others, we have changed it now that proposals are given by Zoom, whereas they were emailing them, they're now Zooming them.
Yeah.
Because you have to
But
work
I
out,
feel like
use, depending on your
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Carry on.
Depending on your client's situation, if it's difficult to get them in person because one's at work and one's at home or whatever, then Zoom, they can both be there together. On the Zoom, it can be a practical alternative to face-to-face.
Yes. Now, I don't want to hog the call, but it just in terms of, I think the way, the impression I get from people that I speak to, the initial leads, I feel like they're probably going to 2 or 3 garden designers at the same time as they're coming to us. That's the sort of general impression I'm getting. They're quite subtle. They're quite subtle in the way they express this. So that was why I was sort of asking whether there's a benefit to going back and sort of talking to them face to face, because as exactly as you say about the emotional connection, if they're also running quotes and meeting other garden designers almost simultaneously, I feel like there's a sort of window, and like you say, the sort of more time you have to build up rapport and get investment in your team, your design team or landscaping team or whoever, the more time you get to do that face to face. I just wondered, if they're running comparison kind of quotes from others, whether that's useful at the beginning.
I think the more you can is always good. I think in terms of the bit you're doing, I think if you could find out, if you go deep on the D and the V, what are they looking for from their garden design partner? So that you're really listening to what they need. What are the real, because when you go probing deeper and deeper and you ask repeated questions, you find out the real reasons, not the superfluous one, the ones that sounds right, the proper thing that you should be saying. You'll get that in your first answer. But what are they really looking for? It might be actually they want somebody I can just be comfortable with, because to be honest, I don't know a friggin' thing about a plant, and I don't want to be made feel stupid that I don't, but I really need hand holding on this. For example, that might be what it is. Now, if you can get to that level of them telling you that, they're going to feel so much safer in your hands than anybody else's. If somebody else is just doing the feature dump, and you've found out that emotional thing they need from using this service. Or actually what they really need is somebody, I've wanted this garden done for years, my other half won't pay for it. I need somebody who's going to make a really compelling case to
advocate for them. I understand.
It might be, you never know, these things are emotional things to buy. Probably similar on the furniture, maybe, if you're going be direct to consumer, but equally Emily, you might be selling to interior designers, etc., I imagine, in which case I've got a yes there, great, guessing well. In which case the interior designers might be shopping around a bit like Sarah was finding with the gardens, in which case what do they need? So the interior designer is representing their customer, so they will come out with the customer's needs to begin with. But if you get a really good rapport and you're digging deep, how important is that design, that customer to that designer? What do they need to look good? They need to look good in front of their customer. What do they think they need to do to look good in front of the customer? So find out that personal, because you're in a B to B to C scenario there. You're business to business, the interior designer, to consumer, to the end homeowner. So you want to get the dissatisfactions for the homeowner and the interior designer.
Yeah.
You struggle on pricing because you offer a bespoke business. Yep. And that is, be proud of it. That's my first part I say. Cool Garden's the same, very bespoke. Be proud of it. And the reason they're coming to you is presumably because they want, and so you are finding out, why are they coming to you? It's probably, and you've got to get them to say this to you, that they can't find what they want in John Lewis or IKEA or wherever else. Well, hopefully they're not even thinking about IKEA if they're coming to you, Emily. But they can't find what they want in John Lewis. Okay. So let's go on to dissatisfaction of the John Lewis stuff. What have you found isn't right with it? It's the wrong height. It's got this. Dunelm pricing. So, but if it doesn't work for them, you've got to be super deep on that dissatisfaction. What is wrong with the Dunelm stool? Well, I had one and it broke after a year. I wonder why that is. No, you're not going to say that. But you could say, okay, so how did that go when you had one of those? How long did it last? How comfortable was it? Or if they just can't see what they want, as the beauty of coming to you is you can have exactly what you want, because we've got these thousands of fabrics and etc. So if you get enough dissatisfaction and vision, the price becomes a bit of a non-issue. You're probably going to be rolling your eyes as I say that, but honestly, and if you understand from how important is it to have this piece of furniture just right in that new house, or that newly refurbed room or whatever, because actually, and by the time you've talked about how long it's going to last, so cost per year of being sat on or whatever, we can start to chunk it down so they're thinking about that differently. But if the pain is big enough, they'll pay for it. That is honestly my serious challenge to you. So I'm conscious of time. You've probably got other things to go to. I've got a couple more slides. Very quickly, how we communicate. There's three channels we have to communicate through: words, voice, and language. Our meaning is conveyed only 7% by the words we use. 38% comes through your voice, tone, and 55% through body language. So this is why face-to-face and Zoom video is so powerful, because face-to-face, you've got the whole lot. You've got words, you've got voice, you've got body language, or body. Video, at least we've got facial expression and hand. I'm waving my hands around frantically here, but you've got a decent amount of body language. Phone, you've got voice, you've got no body language. Email, you have only got 7% of the effectiveness of communication working for you. This is why emails are disastrous in sales. They slow everything down, we lose them, it creates no emotion, and you get misunderstandings. So wherever possible, do not email. If you email, have it confirming something you've already spoken about or met and discussed. So emails are for confirmation of what has already been conveyed in a more appealing way through voice, phone, or video, or in person. That applies to any context, whether you're doing team communication, customer communication, supplier communication, any kind of communication. So I'll give you that for free. Thinking about the things you can do in your sales process, so emails, but as backup, questionnaires. The great thing about questionnaires, if you get them to do a questionnaire, is they're thinking about things. So for me, I always ask people to do a questionnaire. Half of it is yes to get me information. Half of it, and probably more than half of it, is to get them to think, give them questions they've got to think about. So they're building that dissatisfaction and vision as they answer your questionnaire. I don't know whether Emily at Greengate you use questionnaires, or Ella you do. It's a bit overkill, Kevin, for FSB, but yeah, for designers, use it for the direct to consumers. Have a little checklist. Let's really understand what's the context this furniture is going to be used on, what room, how long, how long have you lived there, how are you planning to stay there, what, I don't know, whatever the questions might be, because they're thinking it through and they're building their own dissatisfaction, as long as you've got dissatisfaction leading questions in there, which you want. Phones, checklists, videos. How many of you use video in your sales process? You can use video in so many different ways. You can leave a little video message to them. Great, following up from our last conversation, just wanted to share this thought I've had, little personal video. You could do a video testimonial that you send them. So lots of ways you could do a video sketch of what might be happening, or, you know, a video sketch of how we build chairs here, because this is the nature of the quality of the work we do, and they can see the hand stitching, or the, I'm making this up again. But you can use video to bring things to life so much for them. So make sure you've got these things dripping into your sales process. So to wrap up, to get this sales moving in this very weird year that we're in, is be very careful, mindful and deliberate about your communication, your questions, and your process. Together, how you communicate and what you're doing, the process of that communication is going to get you to a yes. I really hope that has been helpful. Anybody who's gone, oh, I need a lot more about this, I do run a 12-week sales masterclass. Don't have dates at the moment. I'm collecting interest. So if you'd like to go on the priority waiting list, let me know. 12 weeks, 1 hour a week for 12 weeks, £1,200 for the 12 weeks, where it's a learn, do, learn it, put it in place in your business, come back, learn the next bit, put it in place in the business, and we work through. We expect a minimum 10% uplift in sales at the end of that.